Hello there, everyone. It is me, Jeff C., and I am here again on October the 2nd. There's a lot of big stories going on, and one of our old favorites. Yes, you remember this. The Boston bombing. The Boston bombing. All these photos, of course, bring back the memories of this false flag that was committed using crisis actors, right? That there is such a thing. I broke it all down. Many others have as well. Fake blood, um, you know, all these crazy photos that surfaced showing all the things that didn't add up or that were right in front of your eyes. All you had to do was open them up to see what was going on, and then you could see how people were here applying the prosthesis to the crisis actors, and the whole thing was a charade. But that's not why I'm here, because I think most people who have been on my page long enough or following this channel know that this whole thing was a complete farce, a false flag that stank to high heaven, and it keeps coming back. And it's very interesting to follow the stories that develop. I said it in a tweet, I think earlier today, to somebody. I said, when you carry out one of these things, you leave. I mean, it's a great big lie, right? And when you have a great big lie, you have to do 100 more lies to cover it up, and then you have to keep lying from then on. So what do we have here is the FBI, and this is the Tampa Tribune, right, in Florida. The FBI threatens former friend of slain Chechen man. This is Todashev, who I talked about in my earlier videos, how he was interrogated by the FBI. And let me put his face up here so you can get a good look at him, right? This is Todashev. I guess this is his autopsy photo. I hope that's not too gruesome for folks to see. But he was the guy. He was a mixed martial artist. Or at least he had one fight under his belt, but he's a very young man. He was good friends with the elder Tsarnaev brother, right? And the FBI brought him in for questioning, and they had him. Then they shot him 4 times and shot him in the back of the head to make sure the deed was done. So they killed this guy because of what he knew or what he might say. Obviously, he's a close friend of the brothers. If they were set up, like most of us believe they were, then he might have very important, or he did have very important information, so important that they saw fit to eliminate him. So now they are threatening his friends. A Tampa-based civil rights group is accusing the FBI of threatening to deport a former friend of a Chechen man shot to death in Orlando by an agent during questioning about the Boston Marathon bombing suspect. The Florida chapter of the Council on American Islamic Relations said Tatiana Gruzdeva, 19, was arrested Tuesday when she showed up at the immigration office to sign papers for an extension of her work visa. This is how they do it. They know how to scare people. The civil rights group said in a news release that Grudzeva was told she was being deported for talking publicly to the Boston magazine about her former boyfriend, Ibrahim Todashev. Grudzeva was apparently offered a year extension on her visa, which seems to have been an unconstitutional condition she not speak to the press. The CAIR Florida director or executive director Hassan Shibli said
in the release. The Glaives County Sheriff's Office confirmed to the Boston Globe that Grudzeva was being held in the county jail at the order of U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. FBI spokesman Paul Bresson declined to comment to the Associated Press on Grudzeva's arrest. ICE spokeswoman Carissa Cottrell didn't return an email and phone call from the AP, and her voicemail said she was out because of a government shutdown, of course, right? How convenient. This group, the CARE group, said that she was one of the two people who assisted in bringing Todashevs' father to Florida to answer questions about his son's death. So they're really going after all the people that knew him. The other person, Asha Muhammad, I'm probably going to mutilate that, Mary Liev, was taken into custody September the 18th and questioned for 6 hours by the FBI about Todashev. Mary Liev asked to have an attorney present during the questioning, but was denied the request because they don't want anybody to know, right? They don't want anybody to know about their little false flag. They're very worried about real information getting out. You know, with all the people like myself doing a lot of work in the past, at least, to try to expose the false flag and look at the evidence that many people had dug up on the internet. And try to get people to wake up to the reality that these false flags are being committed, you know, over and over again, and it's a concentrated attack to take away the arms of the people. And in this particular one, I showed how all this gunpowder legislation was coming through right at the time. And as I said already, in Canada we had several false, I wouldn't say false flags, but we had staged fake bombings where suspicious packages were left and areas were shut down for several hours and bomb squads were called in right here in Montreal, right very close by. This, to me, along with the fact that the Canadian government saw fit to bring in a terrorist legislation just days after the Boston bombing, and then the RCMP, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, revealed that they were told not to, because they were going to release the legislation, or they were going to try and pass the legislation through the House when 3 or 4 months earlier, and they were told by the Americans to wait, right? That don't do it now, hold on, we've got something special planned. Then you'll have no problem getting it through. Because that's the whole thing. Because when people realize what's at stake here, and the average sheeple starts waking up, and they realize, well, wait a second, what are they trying to do? Oh, they want to disarm us. Why do they want to do that? Because they want to control you. As I said many, many times on this podcast, when you are less than 0.10 of a percentage point, right, 0.001% of the population that controls everyone else effectively through the banking Ponzi scheme that is the West that we know it, you're very worried about your long-term survival, especially when the internet is exploding and information is free and flowing. And for how long, I don't know. But this kind of information is very, very dangerous. This is classic tactics. You've seen it in the movies. I remember the movie with Gene Hackman there, and I believe it was Kevin Costner, No Way Out. And I believe it was David Bowie's wife there, Iman, who was playing the friend of the girl. I'm going to mess it all up if I try to recount the whole espionage thing. But basically, federal agents threatened to deport this woman, right, to make her shut up. And that's one of the powers that they can use. Of course, they can just outright kill people, but when they start killing too many people, then too many cameras and people like myself start tuning in real quick and pushing this stuff around. CARE Florida called the detentions a pattern of abuse by the FBI. Well, we've seen it, right? And it's another thing I just want to
stipulate or make clear, and I've done it on this channel, I showed a few times how the FBI, going way back, was responsible for most of the domestic terrorists. I think it was 17 different, there was 20 events, 17 of them were admittedly, the FBI was complicit in the terrorist event, in supplying, in even, recruiting people to do these jobs, basically going out and targeting certain individuals and then bombarding them with information through the internet, and then eventually establishing contact with them, getting them to hate the American government even more so that they could, try to get some explosives, which the FBI would somehow arrange to supply. I mean, that's what they're doing, right? They're trying to convince you that the terrorists are out there, they're real, and they're going on all the time, and they have to justify their existence. They have to justify that so much of the gross national product, so much of it goes right into the security state. All these wings that have exploded since 9/11, as I've stated so many times on the show, the number one job in the United States is security. In Canada, it's actually truck drivers. It used to be truck drivers, I believe, in the United States, but it is security by a long shot now. And that's all post 9/11. So a lot of these agencies are in competition with each other. A lot of them are trying to get extra funding. A lot of them are just part of this New World Order scheme, or at least have enough people in high positions to pull strings. They also have their lower lackeys to do it too. Last month, Bresson said FBI interviews are done either with her consent or with an attorney present. Todashev was killed last May while FBI agents and others questioned him about his friendship with Tamerlan Tsarnaev, one of the two brothers accused of carrying out the Boston bombing in April. Officials originally said Todashev lunged at an FBI agent with a knife before the shooting. Later, they said it was no longer clear what happened because somehow he was shot in the back of the head. Right? And there was no knife. In August, Todashev's father was at the CARE office in Tampa to announce his family was being represented by prominent Bay Area attorneys Barry Cohen and Eric Ludin on possible civil action related to his son's death, as they definitely should. The shooting was being investigated by State Attorney Jeffrey Ashton in Orlando, and the father planned to remain in the U.S. as long as possible so he can learn the results of the investigation. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes regarding this Todashev. I mean, it's probably just one of the stories, but this is one that's getting on the news, at least in some places. Group here, this is from earlier, actually, from September the 25th. Group accuses FBI of harassing friends of Ibrahim Todashev, man shot to death during questioning about the Boston bombing, marathon suspect, right? The agency has been threatening to arrest Todashev's friends unless they become informants and spy on mosque restaurants patronized by Muslims and hookah lounges, according to Florida chapter CARE. So it's the same group that is covering this. There are obviously several of his friends that they're targeting, and they want to control these people, use them, right? Use them as informants, use them, as agents even, to carry out their dirty deeds. It's pretty despicable, and that civil rights group has got a lot of my respect for standing up and doing this, because not a lot of people are going to represent a foreigner who got shot in the back of the head by the FBI, right? And unfortunately, not a lot of people are going to care that this guy was just eliminated by the FBI, right? They couldn't even do a clean job of it. And